Howdy, my total is always Tubular gamers. We're back with another video. Let's get to it. Well, it's that time of the month again. It's time for me to talk about all of the games I played over the previous month. It's hard to believe that April is already over, but here we are. Over the month of April, I played a fair amount of titles, some older titles, some newer titles, some difficult games, and some really stupid games, and I'm going to be talking about all of them with you. This list is not in any particular order. This isn't a ranking or a tier list. These aren't reviews of these games. These are just some thoughts, feelings, ramblings on them, and how I generally feel about them. And so I'd love to know, what did everyone else play in April? If you let me know down below, you might get a little heart, you know. So with that, this intro doesn't need to go on any longer. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Got the Patreon and the super thanks. Any support is truly greatly appreciated. Shout out to all my patrons. Thank you all so very much. Let's get to the games. So the first game that I want to talk about today is the game Haste. Now, if you had asked me even 2 months ago about this game, I would have went, huh? What is that? But thanks to the Steam Next Fest and all of you lovely people telling me about Haste, I decided to check it out when it released April 1st, and man, I gotta say, this is genuinely one of the best games I've played all year. I was just kind of blown away with this game's quality. It was developed by the same people who made Cluster Truck, which is a first-person 3D platformer, and this game is not in first person, as you can tell, but is essentially the closest thing we'll ever get to a roguelike Sonic the Hedgehog game. You can't actually jump in this game. It's all momentum based, and it's all about flinging yourself into the air and gaining as much speed as possible. And you really do have to go as fast as possible, otherwise you will be killed. All of the levels are procedurally generated, that's the roguelike element, and the structure of the game is pretty simple. Essentially, they just have you do a number of levels in a row until you finally get to a boss. Rinse and repeat 10 times, that's the game. And I know that might not sound the most exciting, but trust me, this game has a core gameplay loop that is just absolutely incredible. It is just downright addicting. Once I started this game, I really didn't want to play like anything else. I just kept thinking about playing Haste more and more. It is so much fun. It is exhilarating. Gaining as much speed and momentum as it gets, it really never got old. The game just has an incredible sense of speed. There's a lot of feedback. When you start going like really freaking fast, the game lets you know, and it feels like no other game. Especially when you start lining up everything perfectly and you just get all these perfect landings, which is essentially when you land on the decline of a cliff so that you maintain your speed. Like, not only does it look really cool, but you feel really cool. And the game absolutely rewards you depending on how fast you got through a level with an entire ranking system. There's a bunch of power-ups you could buy for your runs. There's a few different abilities you get that help you out even further, and then the bosses are no joke in this game. This game in general is actually quite challenging, surprisingly so. It starts out pretty simple and pretty digestible, but by the end of it, this legit is one of the hardest games of the year so far. You will have to go just stupidly fast if you want to get through these levels, but again, it is just such a fun time. The game does have a story, but I'll be real, that's one of the weaker aspects of the game. I just didn't really care for it. I mean, the main character's cute and all, but I don't know, I wasn't really resonating with it. I like the game's aesthetic, its vibe, and then the music is like crazy good. The music is so good in Haste. This is just a fantastic game through and through. It has the same energy as Balatro and Vampire Survivors, where I just wanted to play more and more of the game, and I could sit there playing it for hours and hours and hours, and I wouldn't get bored. If you're a fan of 3D platformers, if you're a fan of Sonic the Hedgehog, or roguelikes in general, this is one you don't want to miss. Like, I am certain this will be one of the best games of 2025, at least for me personally, and I'm sure it's going to become a hidden gem for a lot of people. But if you know, you know. Haste, this game goes crazy, and it really was just a whole lot of fun. And let me emphasize that they did not sponsor this video, they did not send me a review code or anything. I did buy the game, and I genuinely love it. It was so much fun. So a game that I did actually get a review code for in April was South of Midnight, so shout out to Xbox for hooking me up with that one. I do appreciate it. I was very curious about this game, and I did actually stream the first like 3 or 4 hours of it, but I have now since finished the game, and I gotta say, this game was actually way better than I thought it would be. I wasn't entirely sure what to make of it. I thought the art style was interesting, but the gameplay and the story, it was a big question mark for me. But I was pleasantly surprised by this one, and I feel like it hasn't gotten a whole lot of headlines, and that's a shame because I think it's actually pretty solid. So it is an action-adventure title, but there actually is a pretty heavy emphasis on platforming. It sees you playing as this woman named Hazel, who lives in the deep south and is trying to find her mama after her trailer home gets washed away in a storm, and there's obviously a very supernatural element here with a lot of folklore, and I actually think the story is pretty good. Hazel's a very likable protagonist, and I found myself thoroughly engaged, especially the first few hours of the game. Seeing her trailer home just get washed away, I was like, holy shit, this is scary. And then I thought all of the folklore stuff was pretty cool also. The ending is a little abrupt, I won't lie, but I still thoroughly enjoyed the story, its characters, and the world. When it comes to the gameplay, like I mentioned, action-adventure game with a heavy emphasis on platforming. Most of the time, it's a very linear experience, and it's about you going from one location to the next. Along the way, you'll do plenty of platforming, which is actually pretty decent, and you'll get into combat. The combat is alright in this game. It's not terribly complex, and it's not a Souls-like either. I know not everybody loves it, but if you really don't like the combat, you can actually turn it off, which I thought was interesting. The accessibility options were actually very nice for the game, I will say. The game pretty much tells you where to go at every point. You can again turn the combat off, you can turn off any kind of challenge. You can make it the easiest game all year, but you know what? I'm glad that they give you that option. I think the game has some nice gameplay to it. The level design is decent enough. The combat, again, it's acceptable. The platforming is okay, and the presentation is pretty nice. I would say though there are two aspects to the presentation that really did blow me away. The stop motion looks really great. Like, this game just has a very unique art style and look to it that basically no other game has, especially not on Unreal Engine, and I really like it. And then the music, the music goes crazy in this game. The music is so good. I was thoroughly impressed with the music here, like, it's all just really great stuff. So overall, South of Midnight, while it's probably not going to be everybody's cup of tea, I thought it was still a good little game. It was about 10 hours long, and it's filled with plenty of memorable moments. This is another one of those where I feel like 6 months from now, people are just gonna kind of forget about, and then it'll show up at the Game Awards for some kind of artsy award, like Best Art Direction, and people are gonna go, oh, I forgot about that game. Well, I'm not gonna forget about it because I actually think this is a good one. So here we have a game that I put way more time into than I ever thought I would, and that game is Repo. Now, if you've never heard of Repo, it is only on PC right now, and it is essentially the next proximity chat-based Lethal Company style horror game. It is a physics-based multiplayer title where it sees you as a little robot going into these abandoned places with other robots, basically trying to repossess anything you can. You're looking for valuables to take back so you can pay off the taxman, and it sounds a lot easier than it is. While at first you might find some really small little valuables, you know, like a jewel or a ring, eventually you'll come across much larger things such as a piano, a harp, a 3D printer, computers, and you're gonna have to try to get these things back to the extraction point and not totally break the shit out of them. With it being physics-based, obviously that plays a large part in the game, especially when you're moving things, heavy things. While this game does go up to like 6 players, I've only ever played with 2 people, and sometimes you'll need everybody in order to move this heavy stuff, and usually there's a lot of back and forth and going careful, don't break it, and half the time the thing breaks, but sometimes it doesn't, and you actually do win, and you can make it to the next stage, and you can get yourself little power-ups like better range, making your character stronger, and even weapons. And you might go, weapons? What do you need weapons for? Oh, there are plenty of things trying to kill you as you're trying to repossess things. Tons of weird creatures, and while you can fight back a little bit, you really can't unless you have some of these weapons, and even with the weapons, these things will just wipe the floor with you sometimes. The game can be just absolutely brutally punishing, where you just get one-shotted from something that you didn't even see after like an hour of play and you gotta start all over. And yeah, that can be a little frustrating, but at the same time, that's just kind of the nature of this game. Like I said, it is proximity chat based, so you have to be near somebody to hear them, and that always makes things hilarious. This game in general is hilarious. It's scary, it's goofy, it's silly, but it's most importantly fun. I've had tons of wacky, silly shit happen in this game, and it's always a good time. I've even played with mods a few times, and that's fun as well. Is it better than Lethal Company? I don't know about that, but it feels like this game has really stolen Lethal Company's thunder and all of its players too. Lethal Company doesn't even have a fraction of what Repo has right now. There certainly are some issues with it. Like I said, it can be a little overly punishing. There's a certain level of jank, especially when it comes to the physics, and I've had plenty of bugs and glitches. But it is, as you would expect, still in early access. This one could really use a console release. I feel like this game would do gangbusters on any platform actually. Like, this is some of the most fun I've had with any of my friends in any online game in recent memory. Like, yeah, I just really enjoyed my time with this one. It doesn't have some deep, gripping narrative or exciting gameplay loops, but it still has a lot going for it, to the point where I've played like 15 hours of this game in the month of April alone. And so yeah, if you're looking for a cooperative horror game, this might be the one. It's certainly a lot better than Midnight Murder Club, I'll say that. So I didn't just play new games in April, I did play a few retro games, and one of those was Onimusha 3. Back in February, I played Onimusha 1 and I thought it was pretty good, and while waiting for the second one to get remastered, I decided to play through the third one, and Onimusha 3, this game is pretty awesome. I knew basically nothing about it coming into this game, and I'm walking away going, wow, this is probably like the best of the Onimusha titles. I haven't played the second one, that's why I'm waiting for the remaster, but this game has a lot of great stuff going for it, and I can see why so many people look fondly back on this title. The story and world is like totally different from the other ones. Sure, part of it does feature Samanosuke, the character from the original, and it takes place in feudal Japan, but the other half of the game takes place in modern day, and sees you playing as Jean Renault as a character known as Jacques, and basically him and Samanosuke switch time periods, so yes, there's just a samurai in modern day Paris, which is always going to be silly, but I actually like the story, the premise, and the setup. At first I was like, oh no, did Onimusha 3 just totally lose the plot of the series, but what they did here was actually pretty cool, and I think the story is one of the more underrated aspects of this game. The gameplay is pretty solid here. It's like a total expansion on what the first game had. Even though the game still has fixed camera angles, it does not have pre-rendered backgrounds, and I don't think I would call it Resident Evil with samurai now. It seems more like just a hack and slash than anything else, but it still is a very competent one. The combat is a bit on the basic side. It doesn't go crazy like say DMC3. It doesn't actually get anywhere near as complex as any of the Devil May Cry games, but it still has its own satisfying moments and little quirks. But it does have arguably the most important thing that combat needs. It needs to be satisfying, and this game's combat is satisfying. All of the weapons feel really nice. Some of the big special moves feel amazing. The counter feels crazy good, and the enemies actually do react to your attacks, which is nice. I think the combat is rather enjoyable for this game. The level design is certainly better than the originals as well. There's actually a decent amount of exploration here. You will get rewarded for it. There are some puzzles here. There's a few times where you actually get to go back and forth between the past and the present with our two characters, and you actually solve some pretty cool puzzles where if you do one thing in the past, it'll affect the present, and I actually quite enjoyed these way more than I thought I would. I think the gameplay was really solid for this game. The pacing was also great. Something else that I noticed was that the budget was clearly way higher for this game than the first one. Like, the voice acting is actually good, and the presentation in general is actually really solid. This is a great looking PS2 game. The characters look nice, the facial animations are good, the environments have a lot of detail. Like, the presentation is top notch for this kind of game from this era. It's also easily twice the length of the original. You could beat the original in one sitting, no problem. This game is around the 10 to 12 hour mark, and so yeah, it was very entertaining and enjoyable. I can't wait for the second game's remaster now. I'm gonna try to play through Dawn of Dreams before that comes out, so then I can play the remaster for the second one and then just rank all of the games. I think that would be pretty cool. And I'm sure somebody's gonna ask, how did you play Onimusha 3? I did not play it on original hardware. I sucked it up and actually just played through the game on an emulator because I didn't want to pay a ton of money for this, and I didn't want to just sit around waiting for a remaster. Yeah, I just took matters in my own hands, and you know, the game was pretty good. And so here we have the game that I played the most of in April, and that is the first Berserker Khazan. Now, I talked about this game in March, so I'll keep things rather brief. I played a lot of this game, and I actually did play all the way through it. And I gotta say, this is one of the hardest video games I have ever beaten in my entire life. This game is just stupidly difficult. Like, it was just shockingly hard, and that final boss took me well over 2 hours. Maybe I'm just really that bad at this game. Maybe I just had a really awful balanced build. But holy shit, this was like the hardest Souls-like I've ever played. It's up there with Sekiro in difficulty. It really genuinely is. The game was just stupid hard. It did not need to be this difficult. It was to the point where it stopped being enjoyable because it was so hard. The combat is really good, and that's the nicest thing I can say about Khazan. The story is just kind of whatever. At least the game looks nice. The level design is just kind of there. It's really basic, and the bosses are just wildly unbalanced. You will destroy everything in this game in a few hits, then the moment the boss shows up, you just do chip damage, but that's the only damage you do to this fucking thing. And man, this game got frustrating also. I don't ever want to play this game again, straight up. Like, it was a decent enough little game, but I just don't think I can recommend it based off of the difficulty alone. And that's going to be the last time I talk about this game for a while. I know a lot of y'all were sick of me streaming it and talking about it, so we're ending things here. That chapter of this year is done. Khazan is over. So one game that came out in April that I had an absolute pleasure playing was Big Rigs Over the Road Racing, which got a re-release on Steam. and was not just an April Fool's joke. Not only did the game get re-released, it actually got some fixes as well. It also got plenty of achievements added to it, and I 100%ed the game. On stream, I got every achievement, I messed around with it for well over an hour, and I certainly had a time with big rigs over the road racing. I even got to experience the secret second game that they were working on, or released, I'm not even sure. The one that actually has collision detection that is also pretty terrible. Big rigs was, well, it is what it is, and all I gotta say is that the stream was pretty crazy, so maybe you should check out the next time I stream something. It might get pretty wild. I don't know if it'll get as wild as Big Rigs, but this certainly was a good time, and I had a lot of fun with it. It was good. So in the month of April, I did find myself in Florida yet again and decided to go check out Animal Kingdom in Disney World, and I gotta say, it was pretty fun. The dinosaur ride was pretty hype. That was probably my favorite ride. Though the Avatar stuff was pretty neat, and the safari, well, it's a safari. Safaris are always pretty cool, and you might be going, what the hell does this have to do with anything? Well, as you can see, this was an important business trip, and naturally I needed entertainment for the flight there and back, and so I played through Castlevania Aria of Sorrow. I did not finish the game, but I have gotten quite far. I was playing it on my Switch through the Castlevania Advance collection. I've played through the other two Game Boy Advance games, and I gotta say, Aria of Sorrow is a really fun one. The story's really interesting, where you just end up in Dracula's castle, but the game does plenty of cool things to keep it different from the other two Game Boy Advance games. I was like, okay, is it going to be just kind of a rehash of the previous two? No, they actually find different ways, like how you can get all of these different abilities, how there's actually some more RPG elements to it, but of course it still has that Metroidvania element to it where you have to explore around, you'll get new abilities, then you go back and investigate those areas again, and I think the sense of exploration is great in this game. It's not as fast as Harmony of Dissonance, but I think I'm enjoying it a bit more than Harmony of Dissonance. This is one that I'm going to try to finish in May, along with Symphony of the Night. Still haven't finished that one, but I've been having a whole lot of fun. I've actually been having a lot of fun playing through all these Castlevania games. I'm a bit bummed it took me this long to finally get to them, but hey, better late than never. These are some of the best Metroidvanias you could play, like, ever, and they're all widely available and cheap. Like, the Advanced Collection is usually under $10, and so yeah, I would absolutely recommend this collection. Oh, and the music in Aria of Sorrow, real good stuff. And so here we have what was arguably the biggest release of April 2025. It was the Oblivion remaster. It was shadow dropped, even though we all knew it was coming out, thanks to just an overabundance of leaks dating back as far as a few years ago now, but I'm still glad that the game did release. And yeah, this is a pretty great remaster. It seems to be the definitive way to play Oblivion, but now it looks significantly better. A few things have been updated. There are a few nice quality of life things, like being able to sprint in a slightly better user interface, but it still is Oblivion, warts and all. All the jank is still there, and all of the just strange campy shit you remember from Oblivion, it's here in full force. I think it's great that above all else, the game is still Oblivion. I'll keep this one pretty brief. I talked about the game to a long extent in my Elder Scrolls ranking video I did last week. Check it out if you haven't. That one took me a long time. No, but then we have the real RPG of the month. We have Expedition 33. Like, don't get it twisted, Oblivion's great and all, but that's a remaster. Expedition 33, this game has just been phenomenal. This game is excellent. I did a review / first impressions last week, and yeah, the game just blew me away immediately. I'm much further in the game now, well past the 15-hour mark, and yeah, this is a great game. It is phenomenal. The story is interesting, it's engaging, it's emotional, the characters are great, they actually have a lot of depth and personality. The combat is amazing, it looks incredible, the soundtrack is just crazy good. This game is just through and through peak, like no hyperbole, no over-exaggeration here. The game is just incredible. It is remarkable. It is some of the best RPG gameplay I've ever seen in an RPG. The story is just, oh, it's all so good. Go play Expedition 33. It's either this or Haste for like my favorite game of the year so far. It is just so good. I haven't finished Expedition 33 yet. I'm getting there, and I mean, I guess it totally could shit the bed at the end, but the way things are going, no. This game is just something else. It is something really special. It's not part of a major IP or franchise either. It just does its own thing, and it does it incredibly well. It wears its influences on its sleeve, but it does have its own identity, and oh, I could not go off enough about this one. But I also don't want to spoil anything, so I'll just stop here and just say, game's excellent. But I got one last game for you all, and that is RoboQuest. I have been playing way more of this game this month than I ever anticipated, but there's just something about this game that is actually really fun. So RoboQuest is a very fast-paced first-person shooter roguelike that is just a whole heap of fun. Yeah, it is a roguelike, so you're starting over every single time, and a run won't go usually more than an hour or so, but yeah, it gets really intense. Like, this game is very fast paced, you'll be moving at light speed, looking all over the place, and it's actually quite challenging as well. The game does have a number of alternative paths you can also take, so each run does feel a little unique, but what really makes this game for me is the weapons. The weapons feel so good in this game, like, they feel incredible. There's a lot of them, and it's immensely satisfying when you're just blowing shit up, you're looking all over the place, destroying everything in sight, and you get some special abilities, there's some other little modifiers here and there, and it's just a whole lot of fun. I didn't expect to play this game for more than like an hour or two. I just wanted to get some footage for an upcoming video, but then I ended up just playing hours and hours of this game, and all I want to do is just play a little bit more actually until I finally do beat it. I still haven't beat it yet, but it sure is entertaining, I will say that. I also like the art style. I think it is very cool. It kind of reminds me of Overwatch 1, but I still think it looks nice. I like the comic book kind of aesthetic. I like the words popping up in the music. The music is so good in this game. Man, so many of the games I've talked about today have good music. Actually, now that I'm looking over the list, outside of Khazan, every single game I've talked about today has an incredible OST. Even Oblivion's just goofy kind of sounding music. And RoboQuest is no exception. This is genuinely some of the most fun I've had with a first-person shooter in a hot minute, and I didn't think that a roguelike FPS could get this crazy outside of maybe Mullet Mad Jack. No, this game gets pretty up there. It doesn't get as insane as Mullet, but yeah, it's a good time. And that's it for today's video. These were 10 games that I played throughout the month. I could have gone more in depth with them, but I didn't want to drag this thing out. These were 9 great games that I played over the last month and big rigs, and yeah, I can't wait to see what May brings. May is looking like a huge month for games. There is just tons upon tons of games coming out in May. I'm excited for all of them. I'm going to try to stream as much as I possibly can, but I also got a lot of videos I'm working on. At this point in time, my job has really slowed down. There's not much work coming in. I wouldn't be surprised if I get let go again, but if that happens, maybe focusing on YouTube really will be the move. I don't know where things are going to go from here. I'll let you all know how things end up next games I played video. That'll be for May. I don't even want to think about that. The future's kind of scary. I'm rambling at this point. So with that all, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Tell me what you ended up playing this month. Would love to know. See ya.